agenda in front of you somehow, some way here, either electronically or a printed copy. Let's go through it. I guess first item there would be our TOS presentation. It's going to take place, so we'll have an early congratulations to Dr. Johnson there for being Southeast Tennessee Superintendent of the Year. Much deserved, might add.
Here, here.
And then I guess we can move down to bids and contracts there. I mean, everything else there is the draft of the minutes from our last meeting and then executive committee report. Anything there under bids and contracts that folks would like to take a look at? Go ahead and raise your hand if you'd like to see that, and I'll think I can see everybody tonight. I've got one quick question, and I guess Justin Robertson maybe can answer this. Item where is it? It was about the athletic bids.
Oh, yeah. I had that question too.
Is it for
Talking about
athletic trainers?
No, I don't think so. Hang on. No, why can't I find it? I just looked at it a minute ago.
The equipment, 1B, under the equipment?
Correct. We're not there yet, are we?
No, we are. It's under bids and contracts. It's 1B.
1B. All right. So Justin, there it is. The tab sheet for the PE athletic equipment. Is that just the sheet or the list of vendors who've qualified to do business with us the upcoming year, or what is that?
Brent, you're probably better to answer that. That's what it is, but Brent, do you want to answer it?
So the tabulation sheet would show here, I'm pulling it up. This just shows the 12 vendors who responded to the bid file. So we did a public bid, advertised in the newspaper, and these 12 vendors responded. And the way that we did the bid was we asked for the vendors to provide their discount off list price, because that's typically the better way to do this in a blanket type contract where we can use multiple vendors across the district because different schools like different vendors. So instead of ask for exact pricing, what we do is we ask vendors to provide what their discount is off of their list price for the general public.
Okay. So, but schools or teams can use any of these 12 listed. Is that right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And then they cannot use someone else unless it's under a certain dollar amount, or is there a threshold of spending there, or they're just not able to use them unless they're on the bid list? Or this is the bid list, I guess is what I'm asking.
Yeah, so I mean, really, if schools are purchasing small items that don't even require quotes, they could purchase those from anyone.
Right.
But generally, these are the vendors that most schools are going to use for larger purchases.
Okay. I sort of figured that because the statement there underneath was recommended award of bid to all vendors. So I was assuming this was, for lack of a better term, the bid list or the list of vendors that could be used.
Yeah, we're trying to do a few more of these, what we call blanket POs, where they cover multiple vendors with a discount off their list price. This is also something we're looking at, like for electrical supplies, HVAC supplies, and maintenance, because there's a lot of vendors that we use because they have different amounts of different quantities of goods available. They have different shipping speed, different levels of service. So it makes sense for us to be able to use multiple vendors for certain commodities.
Okay. Thank you, sir.
I've got a question on this, Coach Wingate.
Go ahead.
I think this is the right place. Normally I was looking at it on my phone. I can't get on my computer, so I'm on my iPhone for this. But with the contract with Erlanger for the sports medicine contract,
I'm sorry, Dr. Highlander. I don't mean to interrupt. That's a different item on the agenda. It's further down on the agenda.
Well, will you if you would, Brent, tell me, since I don't have it in front of me, when it comes time, I've got a question about the Erlanger contract. So would you refer to me then, please, sir?
Dr. Highlander, I'll bring it up. It's under mine towards the bottom. It's like
Okay.
9D or something. I'll bring it back up when it gets down there.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Mrs. Hill.
Thanks, Joe. Did I mute? Okay. Sorry, trying to lower my hand here. I'd like us to talk about there toward the bottom, 2A, 2B, and 2C. All of these seem to be COVID related, and just want us to talk through them, please. The emergency purchase from Mid-South Bus Center, School Health Department, and then the live streaming.
So the purchases from Mid-South Bus, these are the vans that we're purchasing for HCS mobile units that will go out throughout the neighborhoods. If Jill is on, she can talk more about those. The reason we did an emergency purchase is because in order to be able to purchase these in time to be ready for school, we needed to go ahead and purchase them. We're using CARES funds for these vans. And then Jill and I talked today about a contract for someone to design the wrap that goes over the vans. So these will all say HCS, continued learning or something on the side of the vans. And these are meant, they will not transport students. These are meant to be like mobile classrooms that go out to neighborhoods. They could be used to deliver supplies and things like this.
Okay, so this is the program that was that's being modeled after the Passage.
Correct.
Okay, that's worked so well. That's terrific. In Lookout Valley, Nikki Bailey and I have talked about how useful it could be to take some of these lessons into neighborhoods, especially where children are having trouble accessing Wi-Fi. So that's terrific. So when we say it's emergency purchase, is this something that in the executive has already been approved and we're just getting notice of it, or
yeah, so
like they've already actually been purchased? Help me understand.
Yes, the emergency purchase allows us to purchase things without bid because it's an emergency nature or it's urgent or something that has to be done in a time constraint. So per board policy, we're allowed to do emergency purchases with the approval of the superintendent and the chair of the board. Once those are approved by those two individuals, we then report these to the board for ratification.
Okay, all right. So then this next one then is about thermometers, infrared thermometers.
We needed to go ahead and purchase the contactless thermometers as soon as we could so that we could get those. The lead time on some of these things is kind of long. So we wanted to make sure we could have up to 10 thermometers available per school when school started. And also some of the thermometers were for the summer programming.
Okay.
So we needed to go ahead and do those. We're going to utilize CARES funds for these as well.
Okay.
And then the live streaming, that came to our attention as we were scheduling all the graduations. In order to be able to live stream all of them, the price went above $25,000. So we did, and there was no time to bid that out. So we followed the emergency purchase procedure in order to satisfy board policy related to purchasing over $25,000.
I think was that right at 20,000, just over 20,000, Ms. Hill? And
yeah, 20,510 total.
Yes, ma'am. And it was for 6 different schools, and it was essentially taken out of the budget line that we typically use for graduations, for rental of facilities and other things. So kind of a budget neutral, just a different cost and a little bit higher than what we traditionally would have done.
But
Remind me what our usual rental cost is. Do you guys know that off the top of your head?
I don't know the actual just for rental, but we have a line item that every year has 65,000 for graduations. That could include rentals, could include any other incurred costs from schools, safety, hiring resource officers, all that stuff. So typically it's about 65,000. We did go a little bit above that, just because of the added cost of doing them, across the county, and we couldn't use the same police officers for security. But again, it wasn't much more than what we typically spend on graduations.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Anybody else there under bids and contracts?
Hey, Joe,
Yes, sir.
is Justin Witt on, is he on the call? Justin Robertson probably tell me what, I'm looking at this, the HVAC controls upgrades for up at Big Ridge,
Yes, sir.
256,000.
Yeah, I can get. Go ahead, sir. I'm sorry.
Am I looking at that right, Justin?
I believe so, and I think it's for controls and upgrades of the entire system. I'll get you. I'll get with Justin Wood and get with the HVAC team and get you specifics of what it entails.
Okay, all right.
All right. Anybody else there under bids and contracts? All right. Let's move on then. We've got our financial statement from May. Any questions about that? Okay. Then under our budget amendments, anything that you see there under budget amendments that you have a question or a comment about? All right. That gets us down to the distance learning and telemedicine grant. Anybody got anything on the federal grant? All right. And then underneath Mr. Fogelman there, or I'm sorry, we have the bullying report from Miss Glenn. Anything in regards to that? All right, and then that brings us down to Mr. Fogelman, and this looks like the teachers that are eligible for reinstatement of tenure. Oh, Jenny, you got something?
Yes. So Keith, would you just walk us through that process briefly?
Jenny Murray is on. She's been subbing for me for while I've been on the task force, and she'll be glad to walk you through that.
Okay.
Sure. So if a teacher previously worked for us and was tenured and then left our organization and returned, as long as they work and have successful performance for 2 years and the principal recommends them, then their tenure reattaches by law.
Okay.
With, of course, the board approving as well.
So these are not related to poor performance that are now being reevaluated.
No.
Okay.
These are teachers who previously worked for us who returned
Okay.
and are good performers.
Okay, terrific. Thank you.
Could that be any length of time? I mean, for example, could Steve Highlander come back and get his tenure? I mean, what is there a cap on the length of time they can be gone?
Said good performance, Joe.
Yeah, that
Is there a cap on the length of time that they can be gone and come back and still get their tenure back?
We can let Scott weigh in on it, but I don't think so. As long as they previously worked for us and were tenured.
There's no cap on that, Mr. Smith. As long as they demonstrate solid performance once they return, they're eligible for reconsideration for tenure.
It's a pretty good benefit. Who does that?
Well, we often say tenure is, it's like a marriage, except that it's sometimes easier to get out of a marriage.
I wonder if Blue Cross Blue Shield or TVA does that. Probably not.
They don't, but it's state law. It's not something that's unique to Hamilton County. It's something that actually the General Assembly adopted decades ago.
I've got a question to Mr. Fogelman, if I could. It's not exactly on this, but I don't know, a better time to do it since Keith's already on board anyway. or Penny, may I ask that, Joe?
Sure.
Keith, Dr. Johnson's assured us that teachers will not have, if we're short on subs, that teachers will not have to add additional classes, to cover, in other words, cover 1.5 or 2 classes. If 4 or 5 teachers out, we only got 2 subs. What arrangements have we made to cover those? Do you know? Or can you wait till Thursday and tell us that?
So we're, actually Penny was having a meeting with ESS today. We're working through that to be sure that we're going to have a supply of subs. Once we kind of get a good understanding from them, exactly what their situation looks like, kind of similar to what we did with our certified staff, sent out a questionnaire to get that feedback. And then once we kind of understand that, then we can really understand number one, is there a problem? And if there is a problem, we can start looking for solutions.
So what I'm saying, last year, we had that problem in a lot of schools without the pandemic. And I mean, I'm afraid we're going to lose some subs anyway. And it just looks like I'm hoping we have a plan when we start into school, that we have something to do that to cover those classes that teachers get sick at the last minute. We all understand that. But if we don't have adequate subs, the second question I have is, have we assigned personnel to cover sick rooms, with a safe social distance where the kids will be, the nurse can't keep them all in her office all day. Have we got someone lined up for that yet?
We have not made that assignment as of yet.
Okay. But you are looking at.
But it's on our list. Yes, sir.
And it
Thank you. I know 3 weeks away. Thank you.
I would just note that probably wouldn't be a certified teacher that we'd use for a sick room. Yeah, and then one of the other things that I know that Sheriff Fletcher is working through with school nurses is in schools is there's been some conversation already about many of our nurses are in very small very small offices and environments, and so we're working with school leaders just trying to find bigger spots within schools, in particular as the kind of HCS at home and virtual numbers come out, if there's spaces available to get them into larger places to create more distancing, just in general, just in the normal flow of the day. So absolutely, all that is on the docket.
You brought up another point. Do we have nurses in every school? A nurse in every school? I don't believe we do we?
Yeah, Penny, you want to update a little bit on nurses? I know we're getting pretty close on.
Sure. So we are looking at the schools where we don't currently have nurses and seeing what we can do to fill those gaps. So we are working on those.
Thank you.
All right. So let's move down there under Mr. Goldberg's section. Looks like we've got a lease agreement there for teacher laptops. Anybody got a question or a comment about any of the items listed there? Anybody? All right.
Rhonda has her hand up.
Oh, sorry.
That's okay. That's okay, Jeff. Just about the laptops. I know the laptops that the kids took home this summer. I'm afraid when we get back, a lot of those kids aren't going to have those laptops, or they're going to be in bad shape or what have you. But did the parents have to have the same agreement with those laptops as they did the ones they took home from school? That because I do have a parent that I know, one got stolen out of a car and he's going to have to replace it and that kind of thing. I just want to be sure that all the parents are made aware that to sign that or to take out the insurance, we really need to drive that home with the parents to make them understand exactly. And I'm not sure the ones they took home this summer, if they had to sign that same agreement that they did the ones they were assigned in school or not.
Yeah. So yes, ma'am, they did. And Ms. Thurman, the ones that we sent home over the summer, we purchased insurance on those ourselves. So those would be covered. But they signed a similar agreement to what they would have signed in school.
Okay.
The
Are we
majority
going,
of those that went home during the summer went home to elementary kids who, didn't have devices already.
okay, but we carried insurance on those, but we're still going to require at the starting of this school year for the parents to sign that they will either take out the insurance, or we're going to carry insurance on all these as well. How's that going to work?
No, ma'am, we'll do the same thing we've done in the past. They'll sign a new agreement and then either accept or deny insurance. And when they deny them, of course, they're recognizing that they're taking fiscal responsibility for them.
Okay, just want to be sure that parents really understand that, because some, I think, were a little bit, had a little bit of confusion about that. Thanks.
Yes, ma'am.
All right, anyone else there? Okay. All right, that gets us down to some board policies. Got some first read there: bereavement leave, military leave. Any questions about those? Looks like also policy there for email, application, employment, and then some staff rights and responsibilities. Mrs. Thurman.
Yes, I did the policy about, I think it's C2A, board policy 1.805, the use of electronic mail. I'm not sure when we changed it or this, or if it changed, but there doesn't seem to be anything in this policy about using email or the computers for political activity. And the reason that I noticed, I don't know if it's different or if it's the same one and I'm just reading it differently or what, but I know we've had school board members that have gotten reprimanded, and even some administrators who were reprimanded for using their computers for political activity. And there just doesn't seem to be anything in there. I think there's one under advertising and distribution of material, political signs for people who are running for office not allowed on school property. And then the one of staff community relations, employees may on their own time campaign or against a candidate, that all that, but it doesn't say anything about the use of school property for political activity. And I just don't, like I said, I'm not real sure when that changed, or if I'm just reading this wrong. Is that, I think we need to be a little bit more clear, because Scott, you're here, you know who I'm talking about. The one board member that got in big time trouble for this, and also a school administrator who got in some trouble for this. Have the policies changed, or we just have different wording? Or I think that's even against, is that state law as well?
Yes, ma'am. It's state law. And there are actually other policies that pertain to political activity, not this one in particular.
I just want to be sure that employees know that there is a state law against that, and it does come with some form of punishment. So just wanted to be sure. I just didn't read it in this policy, and I didn't know if that was the policy that had that in there. Or
there are other policies. There are other policies that speak to the use of political activity by public employees. And you're right, there are different rules for board members and for employees. And there's a difference between using board platforms and personal platforms. And even when you are using your own personal platform, there are certain standards that you have to adhere to where the public knows that you are a teacher. And that's actually something that Mary and I have been talking about this week a great deal with Penny Murray. And we hope to have something together for the board to consider relatively soon, in sort of a broader code of professional conduct policy. We're still working through that, but we'll have that to you as soon as we can.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Anybody else have any questions or comments about the policy reads? Okay. All right, Dr. Highlander here is, looks like approval to renew Erlanger for athletic training. Go ahead.
Thank you. I did look it up on my phone. I blacked out for a minute, so I knew it was coming next. Thank you. We're in a unusual state for athletics this year, to say the least. And we're looking at whether or not we're going to have abbreviated seasons, abbreviated practice, shortened seasons. We may even cut out some sports. Will we pay them the same amount like they were working just as much, or will we prorate it according to what their seasons are? And I don't know if that's a Justin question or Dr. John.
Yes, sir. On the first page of the agreement, there's a statement that mentions that. It's on page 2 of your attachment, under services, number 1. The last line, it put in there, parties understand and agree the sport is not taking place at school because of COVID. Erlanger will not be required to provide services regarding that sport. And again, the payment comes by athlete. So if a sport wasn't taking place, we wouldn't be paying for that sport, and Erlanger wouldn't coverage.
Okay, well, that's I got that part of the main part that I'm interested in. What if we have an abbreviated season? If we have a much shorter season?
It would be prorated. So we prorated the actual 1920 contract this past year based on sports not completing. And so we've talked to Erlanger pretty extensively about this, and both under agreement that that's how we would handle it.
Okay, well, thank you. I appreciate that.
Anybody else on that item? All right, that brings us to the next item there under Dr. Robertson, which would be the Code of Acceptable Behavior. I believe he sent an email today.
Yeah, Mr. Wingate, if I could just explain that for a second.
Sure.
I would. Okay, so I sent an email with the full revised version proposed for 2021, and then a separate attachment that basically walks through the changes. I thought that would be easier for everybody just to understand what changes were made based on last year. This comes from input from the board, but also input from our committee, and we held 2 listening sessions for all APs and principals to join in on that. So those recommendations were based on that input.
All right, Ms. Thurman.
Yeah, Justin, I've gotten a little bit of feedback, and they're not necessarily principals in my district, but from some teachers and things that have found a lot of this to be very confusing. Have we been able to work through some of the confusion that, of course, with the second half of the year, we didn't have to, did have to deal with this, but do you find that some people find it confusing and cumbersome to follow every step, or do you think it makes it more clear? Do you think it makes it more difficult?
I hope it does. We made a change in January based on some teacher feedback about the referral. On the original referral, it required teachers to go through and select a consequence, which really is not what they should be doing. They really just need to describe the incident, and then it should be the administrator's job to assign a punishment. And so we made that adjustment, and like you said, really didn't get a great trial to see how much of a difference it made, but we'll put out that new referral again. That is more similar to the old one, where teachers just write the student's name, all that information, and basically give a description of what happened. And then from there, the administrator can take it and assign, the punishment based on, what happened.
Well, that's the kind of feedback I was getting. They said it was just so cumbersome. Sometimes they just didn't want to deal with it when they really needed to deal with it, but they didn't have time to deal with it. So I'm glad that change has been made, and hopefully that will make it a little bit more streamlined and not so cumbersome on the teachers. Thank you.
Mr. Smith.
Hey, Justin, I just want to continue to encourage you guys as you're training, these principals and vice principals related to the Code of Acceptable Behavior. It's just so important that each principal, they're all doing the same thing, because these kids, they know when they talk to each other. So, you know, what's what's acceptable behavior at one school ought to be acceptable at the other. And if it's not, then we lose credibility with our kids, because I guarantee you they know what's up. So just to encourage you to make sure these principals are doing the same thing from one school to the next, Big Daddy.
Yes, sir.
Mrs. Lennon.
A question that I had from elementary principals, Justin, is that is there going to be anything developed for elementary school principals? One of their concerns is that when discipline issues come up, that they don't want to look like that they're not taking issues serious enough, and that that they're not. But then on the, you know, they don't want to be too hard, but then again, they don't know if that the code of acceptable student behavior sometimes that's geared more towards high school. And so that sometimes it doesn't, there's not clear guidelines for elementary and middle school. So is there going to be something for elementary school for the elementary schools to follow?
Yes, ma'am. So the code of acceptable behavior, like you mentioned, you're right. It's for 6 through 12. I'll defer to Marcia Drake and possibly Neely to address the elementary. They did put out some guidance last year, and I think that's being updated, but I'll defer to Marcia on that.
Right. Yes, we are updating that, and we did put that out. And we used a similar referral that we had used previously, and so we will continue to use that same referral form.
Thank you. And again, I too want to echo what Joe said about the consistency across the district, because our kids are pretty smart, and they know from school to school if a kid gets away with something at Signal Mountain and then they don't get away with it at CCA or Tyner, you know, they know what's going on in Soddy Daisy, Signal Mountain, Red Bank. So I feel like we really, you know, let's get kicked off. Last year we were just getting it rolling, you know. I think Rhonda did a really good job, and I think now we've got it. We're fine tuning it, and you know, I think now I hope that the principals will grab hold of it, and let's thank you for all your hard work, Rhonda and Justin, and I think it's a good time to get it kicked off this year and get all the principals on board. So thank everybody for your hard work on this.
Just one thing I'd say is we're probably, unfortunately, because of COVID-19, we're probably another full year away, or at least a semester, before we can really get a full pulse on the implementation. As Ron spoke to earlier, the last semester was, messed up because of COVID-19, and then we'll have, a certain amount of students that'll be online, etc. We have another at least semester of really working through the implementation of this before we can really see, it take full effect. But absolutely.
All right.
Mr. Wingate, if I could add something on the code of acceptable behavior.
Sure.
One of the things that Karen Glenn and I are working on is a rewrite of the district's Title IX policy to track with the new federal regulations. You board members have probably read about some of those changes, and they're very extensive changes. So Ms. Glenn and I have been working on some specific policies we're going to recommend to the board in short order. We're trying to work through how those mesh with the board's existing code of acceptable behavior and disciplinary procedures, because as Ms. Thurman referenced a minute ago, we don't want to overcomplicate things for our teachers. So we want to, if we can, use an existing structure. So that's just on the radar screen to be aware of. We'll probably have something in August.
Okay. Anything else on that topic there? All right, so last thing there is our legal services summary. All right, sorry, I'm working on one screen here and trying to do both. Go
Joe,
ahead. Go
I
ahead.
just noticed that Brent sent us a message that said the invoice we received for school year 1920 was prorated last year because we didn't use all of the services for the athletics at the end of the year. So it was prorated last year as well. So
Okay.
I just saw his note there.
Okay. All right. Well, it's like that's the end of it. I guess we're good. We got Dr. Johnson. You got anything else you want to add here?
Don't.
Okay. All right. Well, thank all of you all. And
Joe,
All right, go ahead, Joe. Sorry, I see you.
just a real quick question. Is Brett still on the phone?
He looks like he is.
Brent, do you have you got any numbers related to sales tax collections for May or June?
Yes, sir. So on June 20th, we received our sales taxes for April. It was a much smaller decline than we had anticipated. I can pull that up real fast.
I don't need an exact number, Brent. I'm just kind of like to hear your forecast of kind of where we're at and maybe what we got to be anticipating. And I'm just give us an overview. I don't need a number.
Well, just so everybody knows, for the same time for fiscal year 19, which is April, the collections in June were for April. We collected just under 7.1 million in 2019. For fiscal year 2020, we collected just over 6 million. So it was only about a 15% decline in sales taxes. You know, we originally worried that it could have been north of 25 or 30%. So that was good news for tax collections, sales tax collections for the month of April. I'm really curious to see what July 20th shows for May, because as you all know, you know, we were mostly closed during April and we opened a lot of things back up in May. May is typically our largest month of the year because of tourism and the beginning of summer, other than the Christmas time sales tax. So we normally collect about 7.2 to 7.3 million in the month of May. I'm hopeful that we'll be somewhere close to that and not much of a decline. And then we'll use that same number that we collect to accrue for the following month. So all that is to say, I think we're going to end fiscal year 20 a little under on revenue and a little under on expenses. I can't estimate yet, how much that's going to be because it's just too soon. By the end of July, we'll have a much better idea of essentially what our net income is for the year. I think that our expenses will be, we'll come in under budget on expenses more than we're under budget on revenues. So that'll be a good thing. And I don't expect that we're going to have to take any additional funds out of fund balance for the end of fiscal year 20 that we had already planned. So I think going into fiscal year 21, the fund balance that we already had planned will be intact.
Well, that's encouraging, Brett. That's what I need to hear. That's encouraging. I'll hold you to that, Big Daddy.
I'm sure it's right, give or take 20 million.
There you go.
All right. If there's nothing else, we shall see each other Thursday.
Thanks, guys.
Thank
All
you.
right.